Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you have the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSaying, no GWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to get us in your ear on Spotify at Just Saying Football, especially this weekend with Week 15, because we got games Saturday, and we got games on Sunday, and we got games on Monday. Just so many games this week.
So many games. I mean, now it's getting to that point in the season. College football is over, so they're doing triple headers every Saturday, so get ready for that, because we're going to be breaking them down. How do you want to get them started?
Well, we're going to jump right in this. We got the Indianapolis Colts making the way to my Minnesota Vikings on Saturday at 1 p.m. I cannot stress enough. Get your lineup set for fantasy early. Make sure that you're chilling early on Saturday.
Get the flex players out of the Thursday game.
Yeah,
out of the Saturday game if you need.
If you need that. Minnesota's favored in this one, -4, 48.5 point over-under on this one. Vikings had a brutal loss despite a 223-yard receiving performance by JJ and a 400-yard passing performance from Kirk Cousins.
Vegas knows, man. They know. They know, because last week we doubted and we said, well, why are the Lions favored? I mean, they are just hot right now. But the Vikings, it's not that they're cold right now. It's just that they have been in a lot of really close games. And last week, they kind of let that one get away from them. The Colts right now, 4-8-1. Not looking like their playoff chances are alive. But the Vikings can clinch the NFC North if they win this one. And if Detroit loses their game, that helps as well. But they could have clinched it last week. So how are you feeling about that huge performance last week by Justin Jefferson going into this week?
Oh, I love that performance by JJ, both as a fantasy football owner of JJ and also a Vikings fan. That being said, I don't like the lack of running from Dalvin Cook that we've been seeing recently. I think 7 carries for 34 yards, and then you decide to kind of just get away from that entirely.
Yeah.
That's just not going to be our success. I say time and time again, the Vikings just have always historically had success when they run the ball well, and I think you just have to continue to do that. So hopefully we find that. But more importantly, our defense just needs to get it together. This passing defense is starting to become a little bit of a joke. Hopefully with Harrison Smith back in this game, that helps with that veteran leadership and our captain, directing some players and that kind of stuff. But if they don't get it together, if we make it to the playoffs, it's going to be tough, and that won't be fun for me. If our defense is going to continue to play like this, I am going with the Vikings in this one. The Colts right now with Jeff Saturday haven't done enough to really show me that they're better than they were under Frank Reich.
Yeah.
So I will lean with the Vikings and with what JJ can do, and Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen, who's opening up this passing game a lot. JJ's 500 yards from hitting 2,000 yards. Could become JJ 2K.
So he's going to need 125 yards each of the next 4 games to do that. But, I mean, if he gets around 110 per game, he's looking at like Calvin Johnson kind of numbers, which is just impressive for a guy who's not even off his rookie deal. When Calvin did that, he was at his peak. So just goes to show the Indianapolis defense has played a little bit better this year. But I have to say, Matt Ryan was kind of what got them to the slow start in the beginning. And even though he's been kind of a bright spot for their offense, better than Ellinger, I think that the one thing about Matt Ryan is that he's feeding Michael Pittman a lot, and he's feeding Jonathan Taylor the ball. They understand it goes to the run game. If Indianapolis wants to win this game, they're going to have to manage the clock well. But the Vikings, they know what's on the line. They are in shock of last week's divisional loss, and I'm going to go with them at home, and I'm going to take them at -4 as well.
All right, I like that. Michael Pittman over 100 yards in this game?
I would say he gets over 80, but I'm not confident that they have. It's not about the Vikings' weak defense. If he gets 10 targets, he can always do that. But for me, I like him around like the 85 range, just because I don't know if they have the offensive output to give it to him. But if they're running behind, he actually, he really could. There's a good chance. I'll actually say there is a good chance he does that.
All right, I like that. Moving along in our Saturday games, can't stress enough. Saturday, 4:30, we have the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is favored in this one, -3, 38.5 point over/under on this one. Ravens walked away with a narrow win last week. You got to wonder if Kenny Pickett didn't go down, would they even have been able to win that game against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I don't know. Pittsburgh didn't look too good, and we'll go kind of more into that in a little bit. I mean, but the Ravens, they really were able to just eke out a win is like the way I could say it. Like you said, I do believe that they would have lost that game without Lamar Jackson. You can definitely tell that there's a difference. Brett Hundley may get the start this week. Tyler Huntley, he did all right last week. It was really the run game for Baltimore, over 200 yards, 120 of them from J.K. Dobbins. But I got to say, I don't like the Ravens that much in this one. They're on the road. Cleveland has had some weird, victories this year. This one seems like they have more of an advantage. They're going to need to utilize the run game heavily. So I see a big Nick Chubb game at home. Cleveland's 5-8. They got nothing to lose, and to knock off a division opponent while they're down, it's kind of a win for them, a double win for them.
Yeah, absolutely. The Browns did not play great last week. Now they did the Ravens. I think what we're seeing right now with Baltimore is that the offense does go and caters around Lamar Jackson's strengths.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. They've found that success. He is their franchise quarterback unless he wants to leave to New York and join the Giants. But I think what we're seeing now is that because they don't have a true wide receiver one, Deshaun Jackson's their wide receiver one now. Maybe it's DeMarcus Robinson. You're seeing that another quarterback who isn't Lamar Jackson can't go in there and find that same success. No one is the playmaker that Lamar Jackson is in terms of his running ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, Rodgers is a playmaker and Allen's a playmaker. I'm not saying there aren't playmakers, but I mean, like, with what he does with his legs. So you're seeing that when you don't have Lamar Jackson, when it's Tyler Huntley or if it's Brent Hundley or if it's Anthony Brown, whoever it is that needs to come in, they're not going to bring that same athleticism that Lamar Jackson brings. So even though they're going to keep running the ball maybe as much as they do, it's not going to be the guy who can make four guys miss, spin move, and is off to the races for a 60-yard touchdown like he did against the Bengals a few years ago.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that they clearly need to figure out and get more weapons for this passing attack. For when this happens, at least the passing game can step up.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's also on Cleveland's passing game where they don't really have, they just don't have the
Amari Cooper, man. It's been waves.
Yeah, and Njoku, I love David Njoku this season, and I feel like now they've moved away from kind of giving him the love that he needs as a potential top 10 tight end. But I like Cleveland at 3. This is it just shows by the line. It's only expected 38.5 points. I mean, not
a lot of scoring in this one.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this one either.
Yeah, but also some injury news for the Browns. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has been placed on the IR.
Yeah, big
That's some
hit.
huge news. He's a great second-year linebacker. Just something to monitor. Let's keep this moving along. So we have our Saturday night football game. Now, if this was on Sunday, not Saturday it is, it probably would have been our game of the week. We have the Miami Dolphins making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Buffalo is favored in this one by -7.5, 42-point over-under here. Now, some weather news here because this is really important. It's going to be 0 degrees in Buffalo. Now, if you're from the Midwest or you're from the Northeast, you'll be semi-familiar to that weather.
Yeah.
But in Miami, they're not used to that. And supposedly last week in LA, they had heaters on the sideline in the game that was 55 degrees.
And it's a big deal.
0 to 55 degrees is
People
a huge
are like,
difference.
why are they not talking about it? But if this team can only play
in
at
the
a
warm?
certain temperature, you're
worry.
talking about maybe you may not be able to win this division if you don't win this game. If you're Miami, right?
You drop to 8-6.
Yeah.
They go up to 11-3.
But
you're not winning that division.
It's just like with the advantage that Buffalo has right now, they are up and they are going to have – they're trying to get that first seed. They want the playoffs to run through Buffalo.
Absolutely.
And it kind of starts with a win like this. I got to say, I like them. Miami got them week 3 on a very, very slight victory, and they want that back. I think Josh Allen, remember they had the small incompletion on the goal line. They drove all the way back up after getting the safety on the block punt. They had the chance. I feel like this is going to be a big running week for Buffalo. I kind of like Singletary in this one. They're going to try to control the clock, take the ball away from Tua. And They got some great secondary players in Buffalo, which kind of worries me because the last 2 weeks we have seen the Chargers and the 49ers start to figure out Miami's deep passing game, if you ask me.
Yeah, there was a great analysis I was watching where if you go back and you watch that game, Miami versus the Chargers, Miami really loves to throw it directly down the middle of the field and in between the numbers. And the Chargers just completely said, we're not going to let you pass down the middle of the field. We're going to take that away. And they just did not find anything outside the numbers.
They're rushing their linebackers back. They're moving their safeties back 5 yards in the play. They are anticipating it every play.
And Miami had no response. And to your point about Singletary, like one of the things that I'm also worried about this game is that the defense for Miami is their Achilles heel. And it is coming through the scoring and the passing yards. But with the way that this game will play in the cold, the best way in any context, but especially in the cold, to sort of set the tone is to hit that person as hard as you can. And when you get hit in the cold, that hurts a little bit more. And if you're not used to the cold and you set the ground and pound offense right off the bat and you say my offensive line are better than your defensive line, they're going to hit you hard every single play in this cold, that Miami defense will not want to be around. And Josh Allen can go 11 for 14, 175 yards and 2 touchdowns because Singletary and Cook and Hines on the ground are just going to absolutely dominate, and they'll be totally fine with that. And I think you're right, though. I think that's like their recipe for success in this one is like just really be mean mugging, run the ball down this Miami defense throat, set this tone, hit them really hard off the bat. They got heaters in 55 degrees weather.
Yeah.
You ain't ready for the 0-degree weather.
I know. They're all going to be in like those like weighted thermal jackets this weekend. But Buffalo, I mean, I got to say, they've won 4 straight right now. They're hot and everything, but obviously their stadium temperature. So I'm going to say that, they get the revenge here. They get a 3-game advantage on Miami, and, they take a very serious lead on the AFC East, especially especially with the way that especially with the win over the Jets last week, and the Jets obviously coming off of 2 losses, the Vikings, now the Bills. This is a huge chance for the Bills to say, and then the Patriots winning on Monday night.
Yeah,
this division's getting hot.
I like it. Let's keep this moving along. We're getting into our Sunday games now. We're going to kick it off with our blowout games. We have the Philadelphia Eagles making their way to Chicago to take on the Bears. Philadelphia's favored this by -9, 48.5 point over under. Eagles have officially made it to the playoffs with the win over the Giants last week, a dominating win. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm going with the Eagles in this one. The Bears' defense has not been great all season, so I think that the Eagles are going to be able to have a field day on this. And if Justin Fields is in, this will obviously give the Bears an opportunity, I think, to put up points.
Yeah.
But the defense of the Eagles has just been so deep. Their secondary has been playing so well all season. The passing offense of the Bears is just not there, and I think they'll be able to maybe slow down Justin Fields enough.
Yeah.
So definitely the Eagles in this one.
I think the Eagles, they just have so many good players, such good depth. I
Name
was
one good
them.
player on the Eagles.
A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith,
and those are just the position players. We've even gone across the offensive line.
I know the offensive line. I mean, last week I saw Lane Johnson versus Kayvon Thibodeau for a couple of plays, and I feel like the really great thing that Jalen Hurts is doing is the fact that he's being protected for so long. Where if he makes those running plays, he has the blocking downfield as well as just the time to throw. Where you see all these quarterbacks with bad offensive lines turning the ball over, and there's a reason for that. He has not turned the ball over much this year, and he's just been incredible. I mean, I just want to mention too that this Eagles team, they are second in rushing. The Bears are the best rushing team right now, but like you said, it's the Bears defense for me that really is unable to kind of intimidate. And the Eagles' defense right now against Justin Fields, it could be a really disruptive thing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Fields has the weapons to get over a secondary like with Bradbury and Darius Slay. I mean, that has really been a problem for teams this year. And I would take Philly by 9 just because I think they could run away with it early.
Awesome. I like that. Let's keep this moving along in our blowout games. We have the Kansas City Chiefs making their way to Houston to take on the Texans. Kansas City's here from this one by -14, over under here 49.5. I do think this is a blowout for KC. I would hit that -14 despite Houston keeping it close, almost winning the game last week against Dallas.
Yeah.
We saw Kansas City go up against the Broncos last week. The Broncos have a great team. They just blew them up. They cannot stop with the gas pedal, though. That got a little scary towards the tail end of that game. But I think that just, this is KC against Houston. This would be a really lopsided match.
I think, the fact that it's in Houston, it's nice that all the Houston fans get to watch these Kansas City players, in my opinion. Like, it's just they're 1-11. They're one of 2 teams that are eliminated from the playoffs, 3 teams that are eliminated from the playoffs right now. And, this is a huge line. I mean, they're expecting points. But, again, with a 14-point spread, it's just kind of like they're expecting a lot of points on that end. I got there's a couple of big shout outs that you got to give out. I got to say, Travis Kelce, first tight end, quickest tight end to 10,000 yards. Like nobody saw that one coming, and it's just insane that I think this is an easy matchup for him, a good matchup for the Chiefs to kind of have a more of a winnable situation before the playoffs. Figure out maybe some cool stuff, and Houston, I mean, they got a lot of good young players. I don't know about the situation with Brandon Cooks or what's going to happen with their quarterback and Davis Mills. But, Chris Moore last week, I just want to give a shout out. I mean, 10, 124 and a touchdown. He could be like an interesting, kind of playoff streamer if they have, more easy matchups after this. Just want to throw that one out there. But I'll take Kansas City by 14, no problem.
Yeah, I like that as well. All right, let's move along into our meh game. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers making their way to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Carolina's spreading this one by -2.5. Over under here, 38.5. Carolina, 4-4 under Steve Wilkes.
Yeah.
That ain't bad.
They're making statements, and their division may be terrible, but they are trying to stay in it, and they're staying competitive despite having no Christian McCaffrey, despite letting go of Baker Mayfield, despite all these things
the real GOAT.
All these things that they went into the season. They are just in a rebuild, but they are still competitive, and I respect that. The defense, keeping them in it. I mean, last week we really saw this Panthers team just kind of explode and be disruptive. And, I'm going to tell you right now, I do like them at home. It's a 2.5, which I don't like, but it's in their favor.
It's the worst.
And I will say to take it, I think this game is a low-scoring one that comes down to a field goal. And with possibly no Kenny Pickett, I kind of like how Sam Darnold's playing way more than I liked what I saw from Mitch Trubisky last week.
Yeah, I think if Kenny Pickett was in this one, I might feel a little bit more confident to go with the Steelers, especially paired with that defense. Last week, they started off really well, and then Kenny Pickett went down. You're going to see it just totally changed the scope of their offense, I feel like, a little bit, especially with just, he is really starting to get it going with this team after a pretty slow, semi-abysmal kind of start. I'm not saying that he's for sure going to be around in 5 years, but I think you couldn't really ask for more given their offensive situation at the moment. But going up against Carolina's defense, I don't like that. I think that Sam Darnold is much better than Mitchell Trubisky at the moment, and he is just playing better than what we've seen. So I will look in the Panthers.
Literally, they are second. Like if Tampa loses 2 games and they win 2 games,
they're back in it. All of a sudden, I mean, they're still not out of it. It's crazy to say that considering the season that they've had. But let's keep this moving because we have the Dallas Cowboys making their way to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Dallas favored in this by -4.5. Over under here 47.5. Jacksonville, huge win on the road.
Yeah,
just statement win over Tennessee.
Did not expect
despite going up against their daddy and King Henry. Didn't see that at all.
Yeah. 29 unanswered points at the end of the game. I was looking at the Jacksonville money line. I'm like, wow. There's no way that they can kind of come back. And then all of a sudden they're up by 2 scores. And even though they let Derrick Henry kind of do his thing in the first quarter, I believe he had like 10, 15 rushes in the first quarter. They were able to step up. Their defense really made a big difference. Josh Allen had a great strip sack last week. And I think Jacksonville, they have been our big flip-flop like this season. If not it's just every week that we doubt Trevor Lawrence and company, they just go hard. I got to say, Zay Jones over the last 4 weeks, no receiver in the NFL has been targeted more than him.
She's balling out.
I believe he's available in a lot of leagues.
If you need him for your fantasy playoffs, now's your chance. All that being said, Evan Ingram also going off. Jack's my guy, of course, loves him. Former Giant, great. Once a Giant, always Giant. I just don't think that this is going to be the game for Jacksonville. I think that Dallas still is. It's weird to say, but they're still, they're fighting for the seeding at this point more than anything. Now they've lost their division and they won't be able to get that. They're trying to just fight for the easy seed they can get, which would currently be 5. So Dallas needs to get a win right now over Jacksonville. Jacksonville's just looking for some respect on their name.
Yeah.
They could make the playoffs. They need a lot to go right for them to do that, but they're looking for some respect on their name. Maybe they just ruin someone's end of season, really mess up the Cowboys, because the Cowboys dropped to 10-4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just puts a shakeup all of a sudden in the NFC and for the playoff seeding. So I think that's all Jacksonville can do. But I think that the way that the Cowboys defense is going to bounce back after a game against Houston is going to be huge, because that was a little bit of an uncharacteristic game for them.
Yeah, I did like, I got to say, Dak Prescott, even though he's a Cowboys guy, I always say you got to praise him for his good play. I mean, 98-yard drive at the end of the game last week. I don't care who you do that against. That's super impressive to me. I love what Dallas has been able to do in both ends of the ball. Sean mentioned it along with Nick Bosa. Right now, Micah Parsons is the Vegas runaway defensive player of the year at the moment. And there's a reason for that. He's been incredibly impactful. He's trying to lead the league in sacks every week. And, I got to say, I think that what we didn't see enough last week was Trevor Lawrence getting pressured by the Tennessee defense. Dallas is going to be, I feel like, sending a lot more of defense to him. I don't like
Parsons coming at him.
Yeah, and I don't like the matchup of Trayvon Diggs on any of these receivers for the upside of their receivers. I don't like that matchup, so I'm going to go with Dallas. No problem in this one. They're on the road, but I do like them.
All right, I like that. Let's keep this moving along. Winning the Atlanta Falcons, making the way to New Orleans, take on the Saints. New Orleans is favored in this one by -4.5, over under here of 43.5. Desmond Ridder era has officially begun in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Knee injury to Marcus Mariota / benching. Now rumors this might be the end of his career, possible retirement.
Yeah.
Didn't like how the whole situation went down, so we're going to be monitoring that as the season continues and into the offseason as well. But it is the Desmond Ridder era. New Orleans still rocking with the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton.
And, obviously, we were really rooting for Jameis to kind of come back from injury, be able to play. But Dennis Allen feels like the way that Andy Dalton has played, it kind of puts them in a position to be able to win. Like we mentioned, this NFC South, along with the Panthers and the Bucks, with these two teams, it is a mess right now. And New Orleans, they're 4-9. They're really only 2 games out. We got 4 games left in the season. Anything can happen. They're favored actually pretty heavy for a team that has a lower record to this point in the season. But they're at home. New Orleans at home. People always say, what are the tougher places to play? Definitely in New Orleans. I feel like they really have a crowd make a statement. They know how to play well and prepare there. But I'm gonna go with them out the gate this week. I don't know if I like the 4.5. I'll probably just put the New Orleans, if they win, because the fact is, at the end of the day, I like what Andy Dalton's been doing. Chris Olave's been playing very well. Alvin Kamara's starting to get back to his ways. He's had boom weeks and bust weeks, but he's having a little more. And they got Taysom Hill, who's Sean's guy, who's a huge X factor. And I mean, without, this is going to be the first start, like you said, for Ridder. How do you usually feel about it, like a first starter quarterback against a division opponent?
Always going to be a little bit tougher. But that being said, I am going to go with the Falcons. I don't know why. There's something about this week. I think it's because they had the bye.
Okay.
So they've had this extra time to prepare for the Saints. They knew that he was coming. I'm sure that Arthur Smith told him that he was a starter long before media and news outlets got a hold of that. This team was aware, so he started to prep around that. They know this opponent really, really well. They know this opponent inside and out. So I think it always kind of sucks to go up against your division opponent, but I think that they did everything that they could given their situation to sort of set up Desmond Ridder to find success in his first game, which is you're coming off a bye, so you get a little bit of extra time. We're not necessarily just making this change just to make a change.
Yeah.
It's coming off of an injury. We're giving you the heads up ahead of time, and it's an opponent that we know and have played this season pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think that they've given him at least the necessary tools to make this change so late in the season. Like you said, 4 games left right now.
Yeah.
They can still win the division. They can still make the playoffs. So you have to do this knowing that he can take the reign despite the injury, So I'm going with the Falcons as just kind of a surprising. The Saints have been hit and miss all season despite a great defense, and I think that why not have a great bet out there for the Falcons and make some money?
All right, I like that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
What about the next game where you definitely don't want to be putting any money on it?
This is probably one of our worst games of the entire week. It's the Arizona Cardinals making their way to Denver to take on the Broncos. Denver's favoring this by -3. Over-under here of 36. Definitely go with the under on 36 on this one. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Arizona will be without Kyler Murray as he has suffered a torn ACL non-contact on Monday night. Broncos might also be without Russell Wilson. Will probably be without Russell Wilson based off of the way he looked after he got hit in the concussion protocol. So we're going to be without the...
Yeah, it's looking like Colt McCoy, Brett Ripken,
kind of
good old
game.
Sunday showdown.
And Brett Ripken has won some games.
He has won some games.
So is Colt McCoy. So is Colt
With
McCoy.
Jared Jeudy last week, I think it was huge. And it's really about both of these receivers, Hopkins for the Cardinals and Jeudy for the Broncos, to really step up this week and just kind of help their quarterbacks out a little bit. James Conner, I think now the rest of the season, I don't know if he will be the running back for the Cardinals next year.
Right.
But I also think that if he's going to go out and get paid and get to another team, he needs to be successful for these last 4 games. That's the only philosophy I feel like he can have. I got to say, though, Denver's defense has feasted this year.
It's legit.
We talk about it all the time. They lose. They're like the opposite of Minnesota being 10-3. They're 3-10 because they lose these one-possession games and they don't score. But they keep people from scoring. In Arizona, last week, after they lost Kyler, we saw them score 13 points, and then they got shut out in the second half. And this Denver defense is going to look at and see what really are these weaknesses of Colt McCoy. I think there'll be a lot of pressure from them. I think that's Pat Surtain. He's going to have a lot to step up this week against DeAndre Hopkins. So it's going to be a fun matchup.
It's going to be a great matchup. I'm going with the Broncos. I think just for me more than anything, it's coming down to exactly what you said, which is the defense. Like, Colt McCoy can move this offense, that is for sure. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the Broncos defense has played legit all season,
they're eliminated.
Yeah, despite their game against KC last week. But if you think about it, they let up 26 points in the first half.
Yeah,
and they only let up 8 points in the second half. They buckled down on defense. They stopped making those errors and that kind of stuff.
And I don't know if Colt McCoy is the guy who can overcome that defense. I feel like I'd be saying the same thing about Kyler Murray if he was in, but the fact that he's not, it's definitely an X.
And it's like Colt McCoy does not run the ball like Kyler Murray does.
Yeah,
so you take away that huge factor. So I'll go with the Broncos in this one. I think they get to 4-10. I like that. Let's move this along. We have the New England Patriots making their way to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. New England's favored in this one by -1, which means that Vegas has no idea what's going on. Over under here of 44. Matt Judon 13 sacks. Max Crosby 11.5 sacks. Looking like a good defensive game. We got the Master versus Padawan, the Bill Belichick versus Josh McDaniels going on this one.
This is the perfect time to break out the Star Wars reference, definitely, because it's and they're going to be in Vegas in the Death Star. It's going to be a freaking good time. I mean, so Vegas, man, 5-8, they've been showing some sparks the last couple of weeks, but it has not been too good for them in the sense that it's a little too late, right? And then with New England, Belichick he doesn't care. He's trying to get into the playoffs right now.
Yeah, look, the Raiders seem to get so close and yet somehow end up being so far from their goals simultaneously, and it's just starting to hurt me, and I'm not even a Raiders fan. So I can only imagine what it's like for everyone else out there that is a Raiders fan. Pardon me. I'm going with the Patriots in this one. I don't trust the Raiders. I started to, and then they did me wrong.
And they hurt you.
So wrong. And I think, Bill Belichick knows Josh McDaniels really, really well. And obviously Josh McDaniels is very familiar with this team inside and out. He was the offensive coordinator of them last year. And obviously he's worked with Bill Belichick for years. And he knows Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. He knows the ins and outs. And I think that there's more people that know Josh McDaniels than there are people that know the Patriots.
Yeah.
So I'll lean towards that. And I don't think Bill Belichick will want to lose to his pupil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a pride thing also. It's like when Nick Saban goes against like Kirby Smart. Like he doesn't want to lose that game.
It's the coaching tree. I feel like we talk about a lot. You're right. That's very true.
Kyle Shanahan said, Mike McDaniel, you're still a Padawan.
Yeah.
This is now Bill Belichick's chance to say that to Josh McDaniels as well.
And the Raiders, it could be a devastating blow to them as far as playoff contention goes. But, the one thing that I think the Patriots are going to do, I think this is the week that they start to figure out their offense. Mac Jones has obviously been frustrated with the fact that, there's been injuries, but there's also he not specifically with that, but with that they're not adjusting. Like Damian Harris was out. They didn't really use Stevenson the right way. Stevenson goes out the other day. They have Harris running well, and then they start to use Pierre Strong, and then they don't really throw the ball. And then Jacoby Myers is out now, and Devontae Parker's out. But I do believe the Patriots defense are going to stop Derek Carr this week. Derek Carr, 20 touchdowns in 13 games. And think about this. Like, he has 20 touchdowns, 12 of them to Adams. Like, 60% of his passing touchdowns at like 80% of the season are to one guy. And I know he's had his other guys out, but there's less adjustments, believe it or not, Mac Jones, happening in Vegas week by week than is on your offense,
That's just the Devontae Adams effect. And before we just move this along into our good games, just have to say one thing about Devontae Parker.
Mm-hmm.
The botched concussion call by the NFL on Monday Night Football was just unacceptable.
Whoa.
I mean, they talk about like protecting our players, and like it's hard to protect against concussions because it's an internal brain injury, not an external brain injury. And of course, you're just hitting each other at super high speeds and getting thrown to the ground at super fast paces. So things happen. But to see a player stand up, physically wobbly, completely out of it, is standing there trying to line up and is just shaking. And you have a teammate saying, get down, is looking around. You have players looking around. There's no one on the NFL side. They don't have their concussion person there saying, we got to take a look at him. That's just unacceptable. There are just some moments in the NFL where they do something so right and they start to implement the right things, but then there's just something so obvious that they just egregiously miss, and it's gotten to the point where like you cannot allow this to happen. These are young adults, these are young guys, and that's a brain injury. You know what I mean? This is not an ankle injury that you get a surgery and it still sucks and you can come back for it. This is your brain. If this, there are cases of people that are like 25 that have or 30 that have a CT and they have issues of a 50-year-old, 60-year-old. Yeah. So it's like you have to do everything you can to protect them and make sure that they're not out there for a play. What if Mac Jones called hike and Devontae Parker tried to run a route and got hit again? What would have happened? That's what I'm saying.
It's just like you don't want to even think about it, and then all of a sudden you think about like, if that happened and there was a video of them running a play with him like that. I mean, the fact that there's a concussion spotter and that guy's not going after,
and he's not calling it, you got to do better.
There has to be things where maybe there's like multiple different people, but he needed to be treated right away, and it was definitely just not right for them to keep
absolutely do better, NFL. Let's keep this moving though, because we got some good games coming up when the Detroit Lions make their way to New York to take on the Jets. New York is favored by -1. Over under here 44. Now that means that Vegas does not know. Jared Goff lit up the Vikings last week, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns at home. Mike White though got that dog in him, 2 injuries, broken ribs and whatnot, still playing out there. Went to the hospital right after the game. Said, I'm not going to leave my team behind. So
no. He said, not until you put me in that ambulance. Not until the clock hits 0. That is actually insane. But man, I love this. This is going to be a huge matchup between the Lions offense, which has a bunch of young, talented players who just love to score.
Yeah, Jameson Williams, first touchdown back from injury.
So Jameson Williams, you got 2 targets last week. Only one he caught. Took for a touchdown. And we were talking about him 2 weeks ago, about how he only played 11% of snaps. They're definitely easing him in. I can't wait to see what happens when this kid starts getting like 10 targets a week. Then you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, it is pretty incredible. But, then you also have Jamal Williams, 14 touchdowns. This guy has 5 touchdowns, 5 games where he has 2 touchdowns or more. Unbelievable. And one with 3. I mean, when you're looking at what Dan Campbell is doing, it's like he's literally playing Madden. He just doesn't care what happens on the defense, and then he's just like, let's go score.
He's just having fun. That's what this whole Detroit team is all about. But that being said, I am going with the Jets in this one. I think that Mike White just showed why he could be the potential future starter of this team, which is like, I'm out there doing everything I can to help this team win despite the injuries, despite whatever else is going on. And I think teams will rally behind that. I also think that the Lions benefited last week from a weak Vikings defense. And the Jets are not the same as the Vikings. Their passing defense is much better. They arguably have the best cornerback duo in DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner at the moment, and I think that this is an opportunity for this hot Lions team going on to kind of cool off for a moment, and for the Jets to kind of get back on track. We talked about it a little bit ago in the Dolphins Bills. This is a tough division.
Yeah.
Patriots are chomping at the bits. The Jets went from first to last right now. They gotta get another win to kind of keep themselves in the hunt in the AFC East and to stay alive in the playoff race right now. So the Jets right now, I'm going with them. I think the defense is going to carry them to a win, as I see this as a must-win for them if they really want to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, so I liked Detroit. You just kind of sold me on the Jets here. I'll go and switch my pick to the Jets because my thing was I was coming in, I'm debating, and I really liked. Like I said, there's a lot of potential on the Lions offense. We just saw it last week. They stepped up against Minnesota. But like you said, the pressure, you're at home, you're in New York. The AFC East, we keep talking about it, is so competitive. Everybody's trying to get into the AFC playoffs. The Detroit Lions, they are hot right now. I would not be shocked if they pull the upset. But
wouldn't surprise me.
But with the -1 to the Jets, I'm gonna go with them because there's something that's keeping
a little something.
That's giving them a little advantage. So, and I will go with the over on 44. I do think this is gonna be one of those weird Lions games where it's in the mid-20s for both teams.
All right, I like it. Let's keep this moving along. We have the New York Giants making their way to Washington to take on the Commanders. Washington's favored in this one by -4.5. Over under here of 40.5. These teams just saw each other a few weeks ago. Giants are coming off of a tough loss. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that was rough. I was praising Jalen Hurts before because it's true. He's just been playing so good this season. But he didn't have to do that to my Giants last week the way he did. It looks like with the Giants, it's obvious that, they're missing Wan'Dale Robinson, Tony, and Shepard. And it kind of sucks that Kadarius Toney's in Kansas City because he's not really doing too much out there, and the Giants literally have no receivers right now. However, getting Bellinger back is pretty big, both for the run game and for just overall receiving, goal line, everything like that. They're really in need of these weapons. Now, Washington obviously has advantages of having, Brian Robinson, Gibson. They have, Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel and McLaurin. So there's a huge advantage when it comes to the offense. Now, the defense of the Giants, Azeez Ojulari, he's had 4 games since being back. He has 4 sacks. Kayvon Thibodeau has been pressuring. Then you got Dexter Lawrence, who's having a Pro Bowl year, Leonard Williams. I think that the Giants, need to take advantage of the trenches and need to take advantage of the offensive line. They're going to need to do what they did a couple weeks ago and start to get after Heineke. These teams just played literally 2 weeks ago and tied. So a lot is on the line, both 7-5-1. Washington's favored by 4.5. Now, I want to know how you feel about that.
I would take the spread here. I would go with the Giants. But I do think that Washington's going to win, sadly, as much as I don't want to pick them. I think they got – not only do they just play you guys, they're coming off of a bye. So not only do they okay, this is what the Giants got. Now we get to rest. Oh, the Giants take this huge loss.
Yeah,
they take this embarrassing loss. And now we get to just play them. So for me, it's everything went Washington's way going into this. And now what they can just back it up with is their stout defense like they have been all season. And then just a solid offensive output. I think what we saw from the Giants last week was just really, really tough to see. It was like watching old Daniel Jones to some extent, like old Giants where it's garbage time scores or not getting Saquon going at all. So for the Giants, you got to get him going this week if you want to have a chance to stick around in it. If you don't, it's going to be similar to the Eagles where it's just you might not necessarily be in that hole, but you just don't ever feel like your offense is getting going because there's no big play opportunity.
But the Giants, for me, it's about Saquon and the offensive line. I mean, Daniel Jones, they started 6-1, and now they're 5-1 and 5-1. I mean, that is not what you want to do. When it comes down to it, it's kind of weird because with Jones taking all these sacks, his 18 sacks in the last 4 weeks, in the last 6 weeks, and then so that's 3 a week. And then he's got 8 in the last 2 weeks. That's 4 over the last 2 weeks.
Sacks.
And then you got Barkley, like you said. Sean said if the Giants can get him going, I do believe in the Giants this week. There's so much on the line. I think that Brian Dable will coach his way out of this one. Saquon just needs to get more than 9 carries. I mean, 9 carries for 28 yards. I understand that they were down to possessions, but you have to be able to get him going. Offensive line, let's step up and get to the playoffs, or you're going to be out of there real quick.
All right, let's keep moving along in our good games. We have the Cincinnati Bengals making their way to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Cincinnati's favoring this by -3.5, over under here of 44. Buccaneers got embarrassed last week by the 49ers. Like, absolutely embarrassed. That was, like, really brutal to see. Actually kind of sad. It was just like they had no...
That looked like the best game of the 4 o'clock window.
I know, and it just was absolutely terrible. And I think that the Bengals might do something similar to them this week, so I'm going with the Bengals. I think that the passing defense of the Buccaneers has just been not good. And Jamar Chase last week, 10 catches on 15 targets for 119 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, Tyler Boyd got a little bit banged up with a finger injury, and T. Higgins as well. So hopefully they're both back in this game to help him out. But Joe Mixon being back was a huge boost to the Bengals. It just kind of dominated the game last week against the Browns. I think this is a game where they're gonna make a statement win against the Buccaneers. And I think Tampa Bay right now, it's okay to hit the panic button a little bit because it's not looking great.
No, yeah, it's not looking good. 6-7 for them. I mean, the Bengals need to make a statement if they want to be one of the more respected teams in the playoffs. They're gonna have to be 10-win team, and they already got 9. So I'm looking at this as an easy way for them to do that. Like Sean said, Jamar Chase definitely a huge factor. The Bucs are great at stopping the run. Their defense has been a factor that keeps them in games this season. But I got to say, man, Joe Mixon is a solid running back. They're going to use him as much as they can. I feel like the way they did against Carolina a couple weeks ago. The Buccaneers right now, the worst rushing offense. They are having about 72 yards per game. I don't see this as a way they can control the clock. This definitely formulates into a big Cincy game plan. Jamar Chase, I just want to say, everybody knows I love him, but he's got 2,200 yards and 76 yards and 20 touchdowns so far. And he and Randy Moss, the only people to do that before their 23rd birthday. This kid, this week, this is one of those weeks where he starts catching up on the yards that he missed with injury. He's seeing his buddy Justin.
I was about to say, let's see if he can catch up to JJ by year 3, breaking all those records.
I'm shocked it's only a 3.5-point spread. I kind of like the under in this one in a weird way at 44 because I don't think Tampa's going to do well. Since these defense have been stepping up, Hendrickson and Hubbard coming off the edges have been great. Logan Wilson has been excellent. But it's going to be a very big statement, I think, for Joe Burrow to beat Tom Brady the first time he faces him.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that this is the Bengals game. And when I say like a dominating game, this could also just be like 21-10 kind of game. And it's just it's a low-scoring game, but the Buccaneers were never really in it at all. So
just like last week.
Exactly. So that's why I can say this. All right, let's move this into our only game of the week, despite there being so many games.
Yeah.
But we have the Tennessee Titans making their way to L.A. to take on the Chargers. L.A. is currently favored in this one by -3, 47 over-under on this one. Henry dominated before his 2 fumbles last week.
Yeah, this is going to be, we were talking about that. He's going to have to start getting going early or the Chargers are going to put them in a tough spot. Chargers defense, we were talking about how there's so many injuries, but obviously with Derwin James, Khalil Mack, they can make Tua Tagovailoa look pedestrian. And they're doing the same thing this week, I feel like, with Ryan Tannehill. They're going to have to disrupt him. They're going to have to stop the run game. And they're going to have to score very fast to make sure that they're able to, make sure Derrick Henry's not a problem for them. Both teams 7-6, both potential playoff teams. Probably LA through the wild card, probably Tennessee through their division winning. But I must say, the way that Mike Williams is healthy, that Keenan Allen is healthy, this is now the Chargers that we were expecting at the beginning of the season.
When they have both of them on the field and they're both healthy, this is a really, really scary Chargers team.
Yeah.
I want to see a little bit. Eckler has been such a great running back all year, despite them being the third worst rushing offense, and it's purely because of what he does in the passing game and what he offers out of the backfield. I would love to see him rush for over 100 yards in this game, just because I think it's very manageable against the Titans defense. I'm going with the Chargers. I just think that when they're healthy, when they got all their offensive weapons, it's a really, really scary team, and it's really, really hard to beat. If they're able to get Joey Bosa in time with maybe like 1 or 2 games before the playoffs, to just sort of get him back into shape fully, all of a sudden I think we're going to start to look at the Chargers, despite not having J.C. Jackson, who got out for the season, and maybe saying like this Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack duo can carry them to a deep playoff run with the way that this offense plays. So they're getting healthy and are starting to get right offensively and defensively at the right time this late in the season. They might not win the AFC West. They probably won't win the AFC West, but they can get into the playoffs right now. The AFC is going to be a freaking bloodbath for those last 4 spots.
Oh my God.
But
imagine a playoffs where you got Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Herbert all on the same side.
All these young quarterbacks. And
Mr. Ryan Tannehill. But I'm going to say this. Tennessee, they're going to keep this one close. I think that reflects with the 3-point spread. I don't see them running away with this.
Agreed.
I kind of see LA going down in the beginning and coming back.
I like a comeback.
Kind of the story.
I like that, yeah.
But I got to say, this is a really good chance for LA to make a statement in the AFC. The Titans, they kind of make the same statement every year. They're like, we are going to win our division, probably knock off somebody in the playoffs and lose, but we're going to do it.
But that's what we do. That's the Vrabel way. That's what he does as a head coach. But let's see if the Chargers can get a win here, because I want to see them in the playoffs. I've been saying it for like 3 years now.
Yeah.
I think
Sean's like, this take's just got to pay off eventually.
And it's like one of those takes that like the Dolphins one paid off. But this has been like one of those ones where it's like every season I look at the roster, every single offseason with the Chargers, I'm like, God, look at this roster.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not have fun with this roster? How do you not win games with this roster? And then every single season, it's like injuries or random weird losses and stuff like that. And they're this close. They're just so close to being
and it's always about
on the
health,
right
and
side.
now they're finally getting healthy again.
So it's like, let's get the win, Chargers. Let's get in the playoffs.
Who gets more rushing yards,
Henry.
Eckler or Henry?
Henry. I want to.
Who gets more receiving yards, Eckler or Henry?
Oh, Eckler. Without question. The real question is who gets more receiving yards, Williams or Allen?
Williams.
I like that. That wouldn't surprise me because Allen's going to get the touchdowns.
I think Allen is the targets, touchdowns, get the first down guy, and then Allen does that, and then Williams is just the, oh God, go throw
let's just
40
stretch the
yards,
field.
and then maybe like 2 5-yard passes, and he'll have like 3 for 50.
You got to love that. He's happy with that. But that's all the time that we have. Thank you for listening, for tuning in. Ton of games this weekend. Cannot stress this enough.
Yeah.
Check your fantasy lineups in advance. We got games on Saturday kicking off at 1 o'clock. Make sure you have no Thursday Night Football flexes like that. If you did already, you're screwed because it's Friday.
Yeah, go ahead and enjoy this weekend. Got a whole weekend in. I'm very excited to present that we are on Spotify, Just Saying Football, Just Saying Football on YouTube, also justsayingfootball.com, and Just Saying No GWJS on Instagram for all your updates. And then go check us out next week for Week 16.
Week 16.
Week
oh my God.
16.
Enjoy.